And I want to welcome all of you. I'm sure we'll have more join as we go. I know Mary Jane is planning to be here. And but this is Critical Connections, and our goal is to encourage and enhance critical writing in ceramics more than it already is. So we meet monthly, and there's Billy Sessions from Utah also. And Andra is in Utah. She's at Utah State University, correct?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So they'll be active in the NCCA. That's their next year.
You're probably already getting ready, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's right.
Andra is from India and is also writing. So that's nice.
Or at least hinting to it.
Pardon? I just got back from India, so my first trip.
Yeah. I was excited to see your pictures from your visit.
Yeah, it was great. It was really good. But anyway, Rebecca, I don't do big long introductions because people can look you up in this day and age. So go ahead.
Okay, it's interesting. This all came together like kind of really quickly. Elaine had emailed me and said, "Oh, we have kind of a last minute cancellation. Can you talk about the kind of the Jentel Bray collaboration?" And then I had found out just maybe a week or so before that Mary Jane was retiring. She might have told me in the fall, but I think I just got, buried under all the other things. And then I called Beth, was kind of on the fly. This is the first time I've actually seen Beth in person.
And it's not even in person, but close enough.
Well, person-ish. We just had a phone conversation, but it was really great and wide-ranging. And I'm just like, we can just continue this conversation with these guys, because it just has some, we just started spitballing ideas. So just as a way of introduction, I've been at the Bray for about 18 months, a long career as an academic. I was at Ohio State for 25 plus years, head of program at Royal College of Art, hopped around, did lots of different things, and ended up at the Archie Bray just a little bit ago, where I thought, boy, this is going to take like my academic interests and then my really weird material lens interest and allow me to do all those things in one place. So that's been really fun. So when I called Beth the other day and we were talking about the Jentel, the writers thing, one of the things that I had shared with her was, and then Beth, I want you to just hop in on top of any of this that I'm starting to say. Or else maybe it's a good time, Beth, for you to hop in and say what your new role is, because it's been pretty stable for a while and now it's a time where things are shifting.
Right. So I am Beth Venn, and as Elaine said, I'm the executive director of the Neltje Center for Excellence in Creativity in the Arts. And Neltje was a Wyoming artist and philanthropist and entrepreneur. She came to Wyoming from New York in the 60s from a very privileged background growing up, and she left that behind in order to sort of pursue her own art and her own interests and really honestly develop herself as an independent woman separate from the legacy of her family back east. And Neltje became a painter. She really believed that Wyoming made her as an artist and a painter and allowed her to be the person the kind of independent spirit she always wanted to be. She bought a ranch outside of Sheridan, Wyoming, and built a very large home that she filled with her own artwork and artwork of other local artists and art and cultural artifacts that she collected from around the world. She was also particularly interested in ceramics. There are works in her collection by a lot of different ceramic artists, Toshiko Takezu, Betty Woodman, many, 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 many others. Anyway, so Neltje started the Jentel residency program 20 some years ago, again, on her property in southeast of Sheridan. And I don't know for a fact how long, but I think it's been for quite some time. The Jentel residency has had a partnership with the Archie Bray Foundation. The partnership up until this point has functioned in such a way that writers who are particularly interested in writing about ceramics and craft would go to the Archie Bray and spend time with the ceramic artists working at that time, and would then write from there, head over to Jentel for a second residency, in which they would spend their residency writing about the artists at the Archie Bray, and particularly the individual artists who were there at that time, in anticipation of an exhibition, of this writing being part of an exhibition, maybe an exhibition catalog or other materials about the exhibition of these artists' work. So that's how the partnership has functioned. And then Rebecca and I got together to say, you know, can we rethink this? Is there another way of doing this? And that's kind of what we're here to discuss in its very early stages today.
Yeah, like super early, like we just talked about it for a hot minute, and it was
Like we just got off the phone.
I know, pretty much, but it was
That's
really exciting because one of the challenges has been, you know, I've only been here for 18 months, but when we did it, it's been kind of hard to find someone who is both wants to be at Jentel and do just really deep writing, and then someone who also has a, you know, your kind of Venn diagram of intersections is pretty small. So not a really big, wide or deep pool to choose from. And then I'm also, and the other thing that kind of sparked it is we're finally, you know, we have, it's funny, they call it the permanent collection, but I don't know if that's really true. It's more like a time capsule. So every artist that's ever been here has left a piece of work that they've made here, and they fill 3 shipping containers and a garage. And they've, in bits and pieces, have been, there was a time period where I think they got some of the collection. They, you know, they did some little cataloging, but there's no images, and but we kind of booted up the server. Somebody found it in the closet and we booted up, and there's some information, but pretty much we're starting from scratch. So there's somewhere between 600 and 1200 objects that have been moved several times, so they're not even in, you know, geological order anymore. You can't just dig down, so it's just like a jumble of things. And we have a plan now to go ahead and get that all done. So I was really excited about, like, we're actually going to get it done and get it digitized and have it all pictured, and we're using a Future Perfect, so we match up with museums so that we can do that. And it's pretty amazing. It's you know, primary material that's never been touched. So I'm super excited about that. And then I've been thinking a lot about the idea of an archive, and because the interesting thing to me is, like, Archie Bray is it's about the place too, as much as anything else. Like, it's a place here. And the interesting part of the collection that's ring fenced in a way where all the objects that are in our collection that have been left by the artists who were here as residents have been made here. So that's really interesting too. So, you know, talking to Beth and figuring out, like, is it more like a kind of a weird archive? And then there's the whole unintentional archive of all the pieces that have been left on the ground, you know, and then some of them are broken, and some of them, I'm sure some of them wandered away, but there's a whole nother kind of other archive. So instead of just, and I'm also really interested in developing, like, as the permanent collection gets developed, to develop a whole curatorial program that's part of the Bray too, because I think that kind of writing in the world is really important. And I'm really passionate about collecting the resident artist thoughts when they're there too, like, not just relying on someone who is like a really good writer to write about them, for them to write down their own thoughts. So we were just kind of spitballing, like, what would it look like if we thought about the writing about the Bray in a wider way, you know, and just because it's lovely to do a catalog and then you have images and you have writing by a writer, but it's also, you know, we've been doing that for a long time. And is that the appropriate thing to do now, as we're at this kind of this funny edge where there's so many new interesting things happening at the Bray, and our history is just one of them. So I'm really interested in that.
Yeah. I just heard from Mary Jane by text, and she's at the chiropractor. So I don't know if she'll get on here or not, but I thought it would also be interesting, and maybe, you know, Rebecca, how this started. I know that it was Mary Jane and Stephen Lee who I think came up with the idea, but and maybe not everyone here realizes the profile of how this works and how the two residencies are intermeshed. And I know you're excited about the curatorial, but I think one once this is posted on YouTube and we can maybe entice writers to apply for the Bray Jentel Critic, that would be a good part of what we accomplished today. And then the other thing is that I think it's such a great model for one residency where there's making and one residency where there is no making. And I don't see why that couldn't happen elsewhere in the country. Where maybe a ceramics, like there is Watershed and other ceramics residencies where maybe there's another, maybe there's a writing residency somewhere close and a similar kind of marriage could take place. So,
oh yeah, I'm so excited about that part of it, but I think it doesn't have to. Like, I think that the kind of where it was really successful, but the idea of the writers just writing about, you know, you have these 5 artists to write about. I'm really interested in a kind of a broader, like, what is it about the space? What is it about the place? What is it about past, present, and future? So we were just even kicking around the idea that, you know, maybe instead of picking from the Jentel pool, because the interesting thing too is that someone comes to the Bray, they talk to the residents, they're here for like a week with us, and then they go back and they do all the writing back in Wyoming. But what if we had someone who came here to the Bray and wrote about the Bray and about the things they see happening? And it's not so just like you have to write about these 5 artists, but whatever it is they want. And we talked about maybe we do a call and we commission someone to write a piece about the Bray every year, because I love the writing to be broad.
Yeah, you know, when Rebecca and I were talking about it, it occurred to me way back in my career, I did some work in Asheville, North Carolina around, I mean, I was a museum curator and I worked with the Asheville Art Museum and did some work around Black Mountain College and the history of that place. Obviously, I mean, a lot of people have written about this now, but the history of that place and in a way, not just the history and not just the artists who were there, but somehow the kind of aura and the experience of being there. And I think a similar thing, I suppose, could be true of Archie Bray. It has this really storied history with these very important people who directed the Archie Bray in, you know, certainly in the early years up until now. And the way the personality or the character of the place changed and what different artists brought to that experience. I'm certainly with Rebecca on this point, which is like, instead of really focusing in on this particular artist and what they're doing, why not open this up to a broader investigation of the importance of the Bray and like ceramic arts in this part of the country, right? Like, I've been interested in that since I started working with the Neltje collection and noticed that Neltje herself collected the work of a lot of ceramic artists and that the Bray is there. And I don't know, there feels like there's something. And Rebecca, you were saying, like, even people like Peter Volkes, you know, who were at the Bray early on and then went on to do their thing in California and create a sort of center of ceramics there. But like, it feels to me that there's a lot of research and investigation that has not yet quite been done on that long and storied history, including the people that were there, what they made, but also just, again, like the character of the place and how place itself influenced the people, the artists, the ceramicists who were there.
Yeah, it was interesting. I had shared with Beth that I didn't realize until I came to Montana that there was such a culture of like, there was a lot of stuff happening in kind of early modernism going on there. And maybe modernism is not the right word. We talked about this too, but the shift from kind of representational art to experiential art is amazing, right? And like those connections. And so much of the history right now is just buried in those storage containers at the Bray. And there's been some really interesting writing and exhibitions that have happened recently that kind of open that up. You know, Montana's not just Charlie Russell, right? And cowboys. Right. And there's a lot of really interesting stuff that happened. And it became this weird focal point. And then I was just really interested in the idea of artist residency too. Like, what is it about? Like a place or a space or things like we're talking about Black Mountain College that make something happen or make something possible. I think is so interesting.
And I
Well,
think
you know,
that, yeah, I'm sorry, just one quick thing, just to say, like, drawing on people, writers, who want to come and look at this from all of these different perspectives, I
mhm.
think could result in an interesting something or other. I'm not sure what, but
Yes, and the Bray has been a magnet for artists and who then buy property and stay there. So the clay community around Helena is incredible. You know, going way back. Now
Mhm.
I know Dick Notkin has left, but he's one of the few, and there are always new people coming in just because of that magnet. And that, in a way, when you mention Asheville, North Carolina, I think about that with writers and
that's
the
right.
way that's a magnet there. And so do you have a Bray Jentel critic this year, or have you done that?
No, what we had talked about maybe this year is that I would I reached out to Chris Holmes, who's now in charge of the Montana Arts Council, and to try to maybe find someone local that can do that for us now, and then work towards, because the other thing is, you know, I got here, said it's been 18 months, and the 75th is coming up in 2026, and I'm like, what do you guys have planned? And they're like, nothing. I'm like, okay.
Oh.
So the idea that we could you know, I was talking to Beth the other day. She's like, "Oh, I think we could, you know, we could pull this together and we could look at like it from an archival point of view and from like an interesting kind of a more kind of a higher level point of view and put together some groups of writing that I think could really represent the Bray really well for the 75th, along with some of the pieces that I think we can have unearthed by then." And
Yeah.
I think
And
it's
when
really
is the
interesting.
75th?
2026.
2026. Okay.
Yeah, right around the corner.
It is. Now, do you know Rick Newby in Helena?
Mm-mm.
He's a writer,
Yeah.
and he's right there. He's been connected with the Bray off and on for
Uh-huh.
probably not even off, on
Yeah.
for years. And he might
Yeah, we
be,
have lots of writers in Montana. It's good. I
yeah,
was talking to it's Eric Heidel, who's done a lot of spreading for the Montana Arts Council.
yeah.
And interesting too, because it's just like, yeah, I just want some more like breadth and also something that kind of pulls everything together, I think would be great.
Mhm.
And it's really great if I can connect with kind of writers who are more local. I think
Mhm.
it's going to give us some kind of ripple effect in the community that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to mention, and Shammai will be, who's here, will be our guest in June on here to talk about his book that he did through Amazon print on demand. So you sell, he said he had someone who did his editing and his illustrations, I guess, right, Shammai? You're muted. Wait a minute. I muted everybody. So.
Graphic design, yeah.
Graphic design. And they then it's print on demand. There's no outlay except for your preparation, the editing, the layout, and all of that, the writing if you need it. But then the owner gets what, 24% of the proceeds. So the book sells, I think Shammai sells for 40. Is that correct, Shammai?
45. Yeah.
45, and then he gets 24 or 25%.
No.
of
I get $12 per book.
Okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
pretty close to 24% or 20,
Yeah.
which is a lot better than a publisher. Going to give you
And
5.
I own the book. That's the big advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A publisher offers usually 5%. So.
And you've
Wow.
been,
You don't own the book anymore. Yeah.
and you've been happy with the quality?
Oh yeah, been happy with the quality and you know, since I publish it, I sell on the average a book a day. In the beginning, it was few hundreds, and now I sell a book a day. But it's over 1,000 books in a year and a half, so that's pretty good. Yeah,
Good.
pretty.
Yeah, with very little outlay. So that's I think
Only
really,
Facebook and Instagram, nothing else. Yeah.
yeah. So that's good. And I don't know if you're thinking about a book or just articles or,
Yeah, we had talked about a book maybe about 6 or 8 months ago, and then it was just like everyone's like, "Oh, let's do a book," and then someone's like, "Oh, great, we can just use half of the old book and add on some more of the new book." And I'm like, oh. I just and plus I think maybe it's because I'm new, but I'm also feeling the weight of the history of the Bray, and I'm
Mm.
like, that's great because I think at the 50th when they did that book, the history had never been written, and I'm so much more interested in the future of the Bray and the possibilities of the Bray. So anything that that's why the archival thing seems so interesting to me, like especially the unintentional archive and thinking about
Mhm.
kind of how artists participate and what they leave behind, and just the thinking about like that weird like 26 acres of which probably it's 1 acre where everything is made, like so many pieces. I think of it like a weird volcano of ceramics coming out of that, the ground right there is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So
I know Anna and I have both been residents there. Anyone else have?
Times for me, 2 short-term ones, and I have a piece
excellent.
in the shrine is I have one of my pieces. So when I go visit, I always go visit my piece in the shrine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty special place.
It is.
And the way, I don't know, maybe you could describe this better than I, but it's been at least on the Jentel website that where to apply and how to apply. I don't know if it's still up there or
Yeah,
not.
I don't know.
That
Yeah.
partnership is still on the Jentel
Mhm.
website, yes.
Yeah. And I'm a former Jentel Bray critic, so I was happy to do that. And we usually have Diane Charnoff, who is the editor of the Renwick Quarterly magazine. She's
Oh,
usually
great.
she had a medical procedure, but I'm sure she'll watch this. And then another one who's normally here is Nancy Service, and she is a former
Mhm.
former one. So you apply, and then that includes, like Rebecca said, going to the Bray for a week or whatever. I was there for a week. Some have been there longer,
Mhm.
and then going to Jentel. So for a month, which is, but
Mhm.
now I think that's down to 3 weeks, right?
That's
Yeah.
right. The Jentel residencies are 3 weeks.
And
now.
then write whatever it is that you're going to write. And when I was there, Stephen Lee just wanted them published because it was in the middle of COVID and he didn't want to publish a catalog or whatever. But I don't know. Other beyond that, I don't know.
We're gonna go back and retroactively physically publish the ones that weren't published during COVID because I think otherwise we have a gap. I love
Yeah.
it's great to have both, but I like a thing, to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I think that would be great.
And then
Yeah.
I've been talking with Randy O'Brien at Studio Potter about maybe publishing some of them in there. So I think that would be great too. Like how
Yeah.
can we get the most how can we get it the most exposure possible?
Yeah.
And also I'm really interested in kind of the Bray has kind of this mystery about it. It's like, I don't know, Camelot or Brigadoon. And I really like to just open that up, which is awesome. And also causes us a lot of problems because people are in lack of information, people make up stories that you often don't agree with. So it's just a place to work. It's really amazing, but it's not like you become a king if you make it there. You know what I mean? It's just a place to work. And it's really hard to get to. So I think that it adds to kind of the mystique. But
It's funny. Years ago when I was in China, in fact, it was 2005, I think, I was in China at the pottery workshop, and this man, Jesse Small, was there. And he said, well, I went to the Kansas City Art Institute, and then I went to Alfred, and now I have to get to the Bray because then I'll have the Trinity.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know
And
if he ever did, but
yeah. But what we're really doing now is we're really interested in, so this year it'll be announced in just a couple weeks, but we're making our the policy procedure of how we picked residents visible, and the jurors panel is going to write a statement and we'll make it really clear, like, here's what we're looking for. But it's about, and Beth and I were talking about this too, it's not just about people who went to the right undergrad and the right grad school and then they get to come to the Bray. It's like it's a disciplinary lens. But last summer I had great fun. We had someone who worked in the fashion industry in New York. We had an architect. Like, it's about the lens, right? It's not about the training. So
Mhm.
that's what I think is so interesting.
That's great. Well, talk a little bit more about this exciting talk that you and Beth had, or both of you talk about it,
Good.
about the curatorial. Talk a little bit more about that. What's your vision for the curatorial? Are you talking exhibition curatorial or just the collection, as you mentioned before?
Oh, I'm thinking widely and broadly. I mean, I was such a loss to lose the program for the Warren Wilson. I think when that was really, I was so hopeful for that writing about craft.
Yeah.
So my greatest desire is to renovate the chicken coop and have that become a place where visiting curators can come in. I don't think we're not at the point now where we'll have a full-time curator, but I'd love to have a rota of visiting curators come in. Once the permanent collection is documented, and we can be like, okay, that piece is, container 3, shelf 2, row 7.
Yeah.
We can have people pick out. We have a space now, then the North Gallery's been renovated, and that's going to be dedicated to the permanent collection. So I think it's going to be amazing. Also, I'm going to get this wrong. I always do. There's 2 universities in Montana, one's on one side and one's on the other. And one of them has started a new curatorial practices museum certificate program. So we're going to be working with them and doing some really interesting stuff there.
Yeah, what she's talking about is Montana State is in Bozeman. University of Montana is in Missoula.
Yes, and I get them wrong forever because one's MSU and one's UM. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Julia is there, right?
Julia is in Missoula.
Josh is in one and Julie's in the other.
Josh is at Montana State in Bozeman.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Julia was instrumental in the beginning of the Montana Clay group. There's a group of potters and ceramics artists in Montana that sometimes exhibit together. They've shown down here in Casper at the Nicolason Art Museum. But would you consider then possibly parts of the collection traveling?
Absolutely. The big hope is to get enough of it unpacked and get a curatorial person in. We're hoping to hire someone to put together a show for us that we can then pitch to MAGDA, which is the Museum and Gallery Directors Association of Montana or something like that.
Okay.
But we need to have that ready by the spring. But we've been working with Ted Hughes, who we've hired to do some of our, he was the registrar from the Montana Museum of Art. And he's kind of the architect of our cataloging collection. And he feels like we can get enough of it unpacked that we can be ready to do that. And then we'll pitch some shows. So stuff will get out and travel. And I think that's going to be it's not just cataloging, it's activating. So how do we activate that collection?
Yeah. And another great resource, you probably know him, is Peter Held.
Yes. I've had many discussions with Peter. He's great.
Yeah. He would be a real good resource and probably would know most of the people in that collection.
Well, that's the other thing. I want to get it all the way unpacked so we can make sure we capture as many memories as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Well, do people have questions or suggestions or whatever?
Document. Yeah,
Pardon?
Preserving history is extremely important, and preserving knowledge. This is what I'm trying to do now with the IAC too. So next week we'll deal with that. So yeah, extremely important to preserve knowledge. Yeah.
Shamai and I are on the IAC, the International Academy of Ceramics Council. So we have lots of interaction.
Yeah. We've had some, go ahead.
No,
we've
go
had
ahead.
some really interesting discussions too about I've had some interesting discussions with the board about, because the way that the permanent collection works is it's usually the director goes into someone's studio before they leave and then they pick a piece. So we're talking a lot about we've had some interesting discussions about kind of labor that's not paid for. So that's been really interesting. Who chooses? What is an archive? I've had some discussions with Fabric Workshop Museum. They do this lovely thing where they have kind of an artist box that is part of, so they have a permanent collection, and then they have an archive that has some writing, it has some samples, it has a description of the project. So how do we make that kind of richer? We've been working, Ben Carter's part of our Brickyard Network, and he's been doing some podcast stuff for us. So we're just trying to figure out what do we capture? How do we capture? And who controls that? Because the
Yeah.
question comes up too, like we've talked about showing some pieces and people have been like, oh my God, that piece I left was horrible. I don't want you to show that.
Interesting, yeah.
So my knee jerk was like, oh, it's ours. Too bad we can do whatever we want with it. That's not very
Yeah.
generous. Yeah.
That's interesting. Billy, are you still there? I don't know. Anyway, yeah. And Jenna Stanton is with the Alberta Craft and in Canada. So it's good to see
Yeah,
her.
and I was at Delta for 5 years before I came back
Oh.
here. So
Mhm.
I worked there as a curator and went there after I went back to grad school in Stoke-on-Trent for more of the industrial ceramics design. So it was an interesting time when they didn't have a curator for the gallery and the collection. There was about 30,000 pieces that were accessioned, but a computer that sounded like a hamster was running it, and really no money to take things into the collection or have anyone in there to deal with it. So luckily we flooded and got a $500,000 grant to actually so that I could have staff to go in. And one of the projects we did was save an entire building full of old molds that were used that could then be saved,
Wow.
because it meant something to me that these molds had so much knowledge in them of how you would make a mold in industry that
Mhm.
most people in North America don't have access to. Jonathan was talking about that when he was talking about his upcoming book too. But so we were able to save the mold collection and at least say, oh, because there is a lot of artists who would access things without, there was no rules. It was kind of the Wild West. So at least
Yeah.
when we could accession stuff and I could say, okay, we're keeping the master molds and the prototypes and 1 or 2 working molds. And then the artist can actually go into the mold room and use the other pieces in their projects without it
Mhm.
kind of affecting the history. But I'm just wondering how you work with that on the Bray campus too, because it was sometimes a challenge with me with our boneyard of old materials and whether artists were accessing that and preserving the pieces that
Uh-huh.
had historical value or whether they were sort of altering them. And it was kind of an ongoing balance between artists and the museum side of
Yeah,
the
that's
site.
I think one place where, and no, no shame on anyone for this, but it's been one of the places where I think the Bray has really fallen short, that has not been preserved. When I first got there, someone told me the tile works, they're like, we call that the ruins, and it's just falling down. And I think University of Pennsylvania was out there 12 years ago, and they said we had about 10 years to do something else. It was going to be too far. I think we might lose the roof to the main part of the tile works this winter. And then once you lose the roof, you lose the wall. So we're working with Share Justo to help us get, she's been doing some landmark status, and we're hoping to get some money to stabilize. So I just want to stabilize what we have there. You can't even go into the main section of the tile works anymore because it's just not safe. It's all collapsing on itself. And then we just have like 2 acres in the back where machinery was simply pulled out and just kind of lined up. I don't know. It's like a weird Western thing for me. Just like you just leave stuff outside and it rusts. So you're not really saving it. So we have a lot of work to do as far as that. So one of the things that we're really, as we start to archive the permanent collection properly, we're going to start to bring things off the grounds and say and accession those too. We have lots of bricks, and I know people come in there at night and on the weekends and pinch bricks and take stuff.
Oh,
So we
At
need to
one
do a much
point-
better job.
Yeah, at one point in a previous flood before I got there, they got funding to hire an industrial archaeologist who did her work on the footprint of a beehive kiln that was found under the surface of one of the floors when they were doing some renovations. So I can always put you in touch with her too, because she did extensive reports on the beehive kiln and the structures under the ground that she found. And it was really
Great.
interesting. But even having her working through her master's and then her PhD involved with us helped us with funding too, just to have some of that.
Yeah. I think you guys in Canada have better funding than we do, but still be good. And the University of Pennsylvania came and stabilized that one kiln. It's great. It's beautiful. People can go in there and but it's interesting. It's stabilized, but it's also no longer what it was because as the beehive kiln, the smoke, the exhaust goes up and under, but they had to fill in the whole floor. So
Yeah.
it's certainly been changed, but the walls are beautiful.
Antra.
Thank you, Elaine. Lovely to be here. And Rebecca, thanks for talking about all this projects. I do want to bring attention to the beehive kiln because I absolutely am for like writing about the decades of work, the ceramic work which has been made. But my interest was in the fact that the beehive kiln, the brick-making kiln, which is there on the lands of Archie Bray, there is exactly same design of kilns that are being used in a state called Jharkhand in India, where long story short, there was a time after I had finished working at Golden Ridge Pottery, which is in southern India for 10 years, I was exploring, trying to create a studio in my ancestral home, which is in the state just north of Jharkhand. And I was exploring for materials and refractory bricks. And these are beehive kilns. They were 4 big chambers, 10-meter wide chambers. They still use coal to feed as a fuel. And the flue channel going underneath the floor and 1 chimney that they would use for these 4 chambers. And this is 2013. Oh, it's already a decade back I visited. But just seeing, I have only visited Bray. I've not been a resident there, but just the land itself speaks stories. I mean, it has a history even before the residency began. Totally for the stories during the residencies, but I'm also interested in exploring that. Not necessarily me, but that's maybe a few years down the line when I have, finished with all the volunteering work, maybe I can be the person who explores this, but I'm really interested in that connection of like different continents having, I mean, I have not explored Africa and I don't know about other regions, but there might be the possibility of British colonies having these beehive kilns. And what is that connection? Just something that I am curious about.
Yeah. Cher Justo has told me that this is one of the, probably one of only 2 industrial sites from that time period that's the most intact. And it has to do because it's in the middle of nowhere. You know, usually if you had a factory that failed, you would just bulldoze it and start something new. So, and we've had some interesting discussions too, like if we weren't for the brickyard, there's no reason for the Bray to be there. And if we bulldoze the brickyard, like why would we be in the middle of Helena, Montana, where it's really hard to get to, where we have increasing difficulty with wildfires in the summer? Like there's no reason for the Bray to exist there. So it's a huge part of kind of the history and it needs to be preserved.
Yeah, but this is, this is kind of like, all of these things that everyone's talking about, whether it's, what you're talking about in terms of the beehive kilns or, industrial archaeologists coming in, like this is what I'm, I think Rebecca and I were talking about is like all of these different perspectives and ways of looking at the Bray and the space and its history and the people who are there and who were there. I just think that it's such a rich vein of exploration and research for a lot of different people from different disciplines and different backgrounds to come and explore and investigate. And there's just so much there, right? There is a lot of richness there that I think can be mined in many different ways, whether it's like, I don't think of it as well, I mean, it's your thing, Rebecca, but like in some ways, it's like, yes, like a standard curatorial practice makes sense, but also like archivists, right? Like archivists, historians of that region of the country or whatever it may be. There's so much that people could do in terms of looking into and researching the Bray and its history.
Yeah. Anna?
Yeah, I think what would be wonderful is to have some didactic information that people could pick up about the grounds and what they're looking at, whose work is where, and who's in the Potter's Shrine, and when was that made, and all those pieces that Robert's made, and just something that people can, because there's always people wandering around. I mean, just the nature of the place, they hear about it and they show up. But of course, that would take, again, someone to dig up all that history, figure out who's and what's there. But it would certainly be a wonderful thing to either something that's posted at certain points or something people can pick up, kind of walk around with a map kind of a thing. I always thought would be, not, I could kind of guess a lot of, that's so-and-so's work, and, I know who made this, or it doesn't matter a whole lot or whatever, but what's that piece of, what's that building? What did it used to do?
Yeah.
That kind of thing, I think would be wonderful for those that, especially those that don't have a huge ceramics background, perhaps, that are just, curious and want to know more about the Bray and its history. So, and the history part, I think you already have quite a lot, but that what's happening in terms of the grounds, it's still a bit of a mystery. I mean, I love that, it's like, what was in this building? What did they do there? That kind of thing, as I would walk around. But yeah, so some sort of didactic information about the grounds themselves, and a bit about, the beehive kilns and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think
we do have a great, now it's like a two-sided trifold map that you can pick up, and it shows you where everything is, and it talks a little bit about the history. And then, and just this late winter, and it'll be opening in the spring, we have like a downtown outpost that we're going to have a gallery down there that's going to have more information. And then we're rebranding what we used to call the sales gallery, that now we're just calling that Bray Gallery, is also going to be rebranded as the visitor center. So people are going to stop in there first, get some history, because you just kind of show up, you don't even know where you're supposed to go.
Yeah,
which is could be interesting, but
no, I think
we're doing
that's
a
great.
lot
I'm
of
really
that
happy
work.
to hear that. It's wonderful.
And then Ben's been doing a great job collecting. There's even a phone you can call up, and if you have a weird story about the Bray, you can tell it. So he's doing a great job at that. And it's going to be with the Montana Library System. So
Who's doing
we're
that?
hoping.
Ben
Carter,
Carter, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben's
Ben,
one
okay.
former student of mine. So he's from the
He's
University
great.
of Florida, and one of my current students, I guess, is going to be visiting and staying with you next year. So
Excellent.
very excited about that. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's another place like the Bray. I mean, it's history with American ceramics, and I just think it's so unique that it has to be. I'm glad to see what you're doing and wanting to document. Of course, a lot of that's in that 50-year book, I'm sure, which I don't have, but yeah. And
it's great. The 50-year book's great too, but our lenses have changed since then. So it was funny. One of the first things we got, that we had this it's kind of a cool, we saved it, but it was like a timeline of the Bray, but it's kind of like 11 men. That's all it was. So it's like, okay, let's take that down and roll that up, and then let's figure out a way to do some wayfinding and different kinds of stories, because there's stories before the Brickyard too that I think need to be included. And there's lots of people that helped make the Bray really amazing, not just the directors. Or
how many directors have there been now? Do you know?
Oh, I don't remember.
Okay,
no. Well, one of them was a
15.
woman, and I was there when Carol was there. We still kind of Facebook and keep in touch with her, and she and I used to walk her. She had a baby at the time, and we would take her in a stroller and go around the little lake there. I remember vividly from that first time that I was there. So we have had
Carol Rohrbach, and then there was a married couple. I can't, whose name escapes me at the moment. That kind of were co-directors for a short time. But
I don't know who that would be. Yeah, and I want to say I misspoke earlier about Jentel, because it's a non-equipment intensive place. You can use whatever you can bring with you, but there are not kilns or printing presses or whatever. But sometimes people bring in a little printing press, and it's a free residency. It has been in the past, and they give you a stipend for your food while you're there. Wonderful accommodations, just amazing. And there usually are 4 visual artists and 2 writers there every month. And the way the rooms are set up, 2 of you share a bathroom. And then you have a patio off of your room, and then there's a giant great room where all of you can cook together or be together. So you can be as private or as public as you want to. And it just, I knew Neltje extremely well, and it just reflects her vision. And you're told when you get there that there is no right angle in the whole residence house. And I'm sure there is where the wall meets the floor, but otherwise, I mean, it's just an amazing place. And for a ceramics artist, it's a great place to even just go and think, you know. It's and do what you want to do. It's beautiful grounds where you can hike, or I just can't say enough about it. It's really incredible. There are 2 writers' studios, which I was in when I was there, and then there are 4 beautiful visual art studios where it's really a blank canvas. There's a little daybed in there and chairs, and you can pin things to the walls, and it's so user-friendly. It's amazing. And all from the generosity of Neltje, whom we miss dearly. Yeah. And I don't know if this is Mary Jane on iPad 7. Is that you, Mary Jane? Mary Jane? Who's on iPad 7? Hello. Oh, well. Hi, Linda. Linda Lighton. Linda Lighton has been generous in the past with us. Several times she's provided funds so that we can pay our presenters. And in this case, Rebecca and I agreed that Linda's on here twice. Hi, Linda. And so Linda has been generous to support us in the past, and Rebecca and I agreed that her honorarium would go as a donation to the Archie Bray Foundation. So that's very generous of her.
Yeah, because I was thinking when I first found out about Jentel, I'm like, that is the best business model ever. You don't have equipment you have to fix, like all those kilns and clay mixers and
yeah. I think the biggest maintenance thing that happened when I was there was 2 things. They had to call Game and Fish because the beavers were destroying the creek line. But I mean, you can swim in the creek if you want. And then we had a bear break into the garbage cans. But it's a black bear, and they're non-carnivorous, I suppose, unless they're desperate. But it wasn't anything to be fearful of. But some of the residents had been walking from the studio to the residence and heard her growl. So they quickened their pace. But it's wonderful. And the Bray is wonderful. When I was there, I house sat for Robert Harrison.
oh, nice.
House to
Lovely
myself. Was there for
That is-
his 5th birthday.
That is one of our big challenges now. It's interesting. Anna, I think, was talking about how, what a great community we have, because people would come and just stay, and they stayed partly because housing was really cheap. I don't know how many residents, well, about 0, can afford a $500,000 house, which is, I think, our medium range now for a house. During COVID, things just tripled in value. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens to the clay community, because
so many of the long-term residents work while they're there, because they have to. But yeah, so it was great to be able to stay at Roberts. I didn't have to pay.
Rebecca, any plans for some housing on site? Because that's
I have plans. I'm getting a lot of pushback because, again, part of the ethos was like, well, this will be great. It's great for people to be in the community. It's great for that. It's great for this. But that was, I think, between Airbnb and COVID, where people bought their 3rd and 4th house instead of just their 2nd house. We just don't, there's no housing. It's really expensive and hard to find. And the Bray it's really rural. It's funny. We had a great artist, Kambui, came from New York, and he was here the summer before last, and he's like this 6 foot tall, very striking African American with a giant mohawk, and he's like walking down the street. I'm like, Kambui, where are you going? He's like, I'm going to get something to eat. I'm like, it's like 4 miles to the gas station. Like, hop in the car, let's go get something. There's hardly any there's no public transportation. So, and also the reality is, I mean, the residents all used to work, but in my time there, a lot of them aren't working. They're just, it's kind of like kids used to put themselves, I shouldn't say kids, students used to put themselves through college. And now the investment is so much that it's not worth it. You just want to make your work and kind of buckle down while you're there. So we need to find different ways to kind of fold people into the community. And we have 26 acres. ArtSpace came out to Helena maybe about 6 months ago, looking to see if this would be a good place there. They build housing, I think, in 58 different communities across the U.S. The property's too expensive for them right now downtown for them to build anything. But one of the city commissioners said, I would be completely in favor of you guys putting tiny houses out here. So I think, especially for our summer residents, it would make absolute sense. And I would love, this is my crazy idea. I'm like, let's get a bunch of crazy architects and designers and let's build some clay houses out here.
Yeah, do a competition.
Yeah, that'd be
You know,
great.
Lots
Yeah,
of bricks.
and my girlfriend has a residency in Seaside, Florida.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think they have housing, but all these people have extra houses there. So she has convinced all these people, or I don't know however many they have, 10 or something, to give them their houses while they're not there.
Nice.
It's an interesting idea if you can
Mm-hmm.
get people together, but she's done it for many years now.
That's great.
Yeah, I've been, I joined Rotary and I go to the hometown thing that happens every week. And last year we made just little cards like, do you want to house an artist for the summer? Like, we'll vouch for him and you can do it. So I think there's ways we can do it, but we need to, during COVID, a lot of, of our social contracts kind of got broken. So we have some rebuilding to do.
Yeah.
Just with the people in the community and reconnecting.
At Delta, that was one of our main questions because we were on the edge of Medicine Hat. So it was tricky to get to and no public transport. And we had to fight with the city and eventually got a bus out there because it is a tourist destination too and a workplace. But a lot of artists just wanted housing, or when we had relationships with people in the community to have artists rent rooms or stay with them. There was a lot of people in the community that had artists with them that were kind of upset because they thought these artists were going to hang out with them in their house and they'd get to know them and share meals, and they would refer to them as ghosts because they would be working in the studio until they would crash in the middle of the night and be gone in the morning before they got up. So it was interesting. But we did eventually turn one of the old office building into like a communal live space that has been really helpful at getting more people to come and not have to find housing.
Yeah.
And we helped them find housing, but it's one of our, Allison Rowland was our fabulous admin person. She spends about 3 months finding people housing. So.
Wow.
I like the tiny house idea though, because we were thinking along those lines too, of like having architects and getting a competition. Because even with our site, it was like around there at the time with the workers, they lived in tiny houses all around the factory too. So it could kind of tie into the history of it too.
That's great. And the Bray also gives community classes. And we have a nephew who lives in Helena and works for the state he was with the DEQ or something in water conservation. And he has taken classes at the Bray, and now he's got a studio in his garage, and here he is, this left brain water resource scientist, and he's a good little potter, and he comes and fires there, and his name is Jason Garber, if you ever run into him.
Oh yeah, Jason Garber. Yeah. We're doing a lot with our education program too. One of the things we're really interested in is opening up pathways for people who have not had a voice at the table. So really reworking, we did a fabulous First Fire program last year where we had 6 Indigenous artists from across the country come, and we kind of gave them full run of the education building, and they did a pit firing, and we also brought kids down from Lame Deer School, which is a Indigenous school. And then the best thing was we had the MAPS program guys that's also students who are from schools in Montana. They came down and filmed them. So I felt like we had a big ripple effect.
Do you
It's really
anticipate
exciting.
that even with the new profile, you will do an annual consortium here to do Jentel Bray?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it just may look a little different,
Yeah,
but, and we'll still, and again, for me, it's an expansion, not a contraction. So like I said, I'm looking at how can I contact with local writers to do some writing for our artists in a kind of in a more traditional way. And then how can we work with Jentel in this more expansive way to figure out like, what is an archive? What does it mean to write about art? What does it mean to do art? What does it mean to be in this place where people have been for thousands of years? And and ceramics has been made here for, oh my gosh, it's probably almost 100 years since late 1800s, more than that. But
yeah, that's great. Well, we're about to the end of our time, so,
Oh.
oh, oops. Yeah. How many of you are going to NCECA?
hey, oh, good. We can catch up then.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even get to tell you guys all my plans for the clay business and turning it into a crazy research center. So
Do that briefly, if
the clay
possible.
business, it's when I got there, I was just like, for me, I was like, oh my God, you guys have a factory of your own. And then also, then my next thought was like, and this is what you're doing. We can do so much more exciting things. I would love to, we need, part of what we do there is really important to the local community, but we can also, we're talking about putting in a testing lab and being able to do more materials. One of my big ideas is like, I wanted an artist to come in and say to somebody down at the clay biz, like, I want to make a clay that expands 20%, then melts into a sea of golden bubbles. And somebody will say, okay, game on, let's do that.
Yeah.
And then someone can come to hum through, like maybe Lauren Mayberry comes through, makes a beautiful glaze, and we're like, Lauren, let's like market that glaze for you and give you $1 a pint for the next 2 years, and then we'll move
Yeah.
on to something else. And then, Montana's a state of minerals, so let's get some local materials and let's start experimenting with kind of those.
Yeah, good idea.
Because it fits our mission. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Good for
It'll be
you.
really fun.
Well, thanks so much. Are there any other final thoughts, or appreciate you staying up? Shamai, maybe you're a late night person anyway. All of you.
Going to sleep now. It's okay.
Good.
Yeah, and our hearts go out to you and all
Yes.
of your their people in your country,
Yeah.
and
Be safe.
everyone.
Fine, be safe.
Stay safe. And I know he likes to escape to the US when he can. But we'll see you at NCECA.
You didn't sick of.
Jonathan, you'll be at NCECA peddling your new book. Wait, you're muted. Jonathan, you're muted. His dog didn't go in and out today.
Could you send out a reminder of the meeting?
Yes, I just yesterday got the room number. So my plans are in the next few days. I'm finishing up doing all the editing and some of the writing and for NCECA's documents. So I should be done with that tomorrow, and then I'll be sending out a reminder to we have an IAC, International Academy of Ceramics meeting at NCECA for all who are in attendance. And yeah, so it'll be Thursday morning of NCECA at 7:30, and I will send out the room number.
Great. I just want to say additional thanks to Beth for like taking my crazy phone call at the last minute and then being like, yeah, I'll hop on the Zoom call with you. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with
I'm
that.
happy to talk about it with all of you. It's interesting.
Great.
And we'll see at least you, Beth, at the Governor's Arts Awards. Mary Jane is receiving the Governor's Arts Award. So that's exciting for her. And we'll see Shamai at NCECA also, and Linda and Jonathan. It'll be, yeah. Do you come to NCECA, Jenna?
I'm usually there most years, and I plan the Canadian pub night that some of you might have attended.
Oh, fun.
But I'm not going to be there this year. I'm going to be in Australia at the time. So I'll be visiting all my ceramic pals in Australia. And
Oh, fun.
there's a place called Bendigo Pottery that's north of Melbourne that I talked to before about bringing in a residency component, because they're a historical factory, just like Medelta was, but they remained in operation. But it's just an amazing place that they did. I think they've attempted in years, just at the early COVID, to turn it into a residency. The previous director of ceramics from the Jam Factory went over there to do that briefly, but I think that's a really interesting site too that could have some international exchanges.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Good. And Rebecca, would you be up to putting your email in the chat?
Sure.
In case people have questions or other interests there?
It's super easy. It's rharvey@archiebray.org. So
That's pretty darn easy, yeah.
yeah.
Beth, if you want to too, if people have interest in more information on Jentel
Sure.
and the Neltje Center,
Oops,
that would
sorry.
be great. Okay, yeah, it is. Anna just put in here that thanks for bringing back memories about my times at the Bray and my couple visits to Jentel. She's toured the place and
Well, come
with-
on back again.
yeah.
I would love to, believe me.
Have a
I've been to Red Lodge a couple times, so I have this thing about Montana, and I
Yeah.
have to stop and see Elaine on the way. So
Yeah, there you
it's
go.
all part of the package deal.
Yeah. So just so you can get a chance to write this down, I'm leaving on the 27th to go to Grand Forks, North Dakota, Grand Forks. My 50 bowl project is up there now.
Ooh.
And,
Can you send me details? A good friend of mine, is there that teaches. She teaches in. Well, her name is Jenny Tarlin. She teaches. I would see her in Shanghai all the time because she teaches for the university there. She teaches a program at one of the universities in Shanghai, and she does arts related things all the time. So yes, I need the information.
the show is up now, and I'll be going at the end of the month to do meetings with the students, and then
oh great,
a workshop and a talk and a closing, and then bring them back home again. So
yeah, so give me a link or whatever to the show, and I'll make sure Jenny gets it.
Will do. Well,
Right.
Linda, I'm sorry you were late.
Oh, I know. I got the time.
I said that we were meeting at 4. I nudged her earlier, but then I said, but it's 3 your time. You just didn't read the second part of the message, Linda.
I think it said it's.
Yeah.
I thought you said it's 3. Well, I don't know. Whatever. Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
Dyslexia gets you again. Sorry, I missed out, but I'll see you next time.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll see it in Tika.
Yeah.
See ya.
And this will be
Hey, everybody.
on YouTube. So thank you so much, Beth.
Bye-bye.
And
Thanks, Elaine.
uh-huh.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.